Lauren Montgomery, director of the film. Number one director of action animation.
So were you a Wonder Woman fan growing up, Lauren?
Yeah. Not
And might I
not
say,
huge.
your hair looks
Oh, thank you. I didn't really know the comics as much as, or really the TV series. I just knew her from images and Super Friends every once in a while.
Super Friends. Tell us about Super Friends. The Super Friends influence.
You know, it was just a show. 'Cause when I was young, you know, it was fun, and I would watch it for fun, and that's what it was. But you know, it put the whole superhero thing in my mind at an early age. So.
What would you say is the main difference between working with Wonder Woman and Superman?
Well, I guess just the gender difference is the main difference, and I have and probably always will prefer working with female characters just because I feel like they have just a wider range of things you can do with them. You know, they can be feminine and they can be masculine, you know, in their hero role, whereas male characters can only be masculine. You start making them be feminine and people don't accept them as much anymore. So that's why I prefer the female characters, and that's probably, you know, the biggest difference between Superman and Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman can cry if she needs to. Superman, you start making him cry and people are like, oh, Superman doesn't cry, and the fans get all pissed. And you gotta deal with that.
How is directing animation different than directing live action?
Well,
Or how is it the same?
it's a little bit of both. There are people that do storyboards for live action. In animation, your storyboard is, you know, essential. You can't really make animation without a storyboard. It's the blueprint that you make the film off of. So, you know, that is pretty much what I, as a director, deal with. I deal with the storyboard. I pick all my shots instead of, you know, with the camera lens, with my storyboard panels, and I have my crew of storyboard people who, you know, they draw the shots exactly how they're going to be animated. So, you know, you need to see them in exactly how it's going to be seen on screen, and that's how it's got to be drawn on that storyboard.
That's changed a whole lot in the past 10 or 15 years, hasn't it? I mean, you can really animate that and test with that, whereas it used to just be pieces of paper, please redraw that, and let's see how that works.
Well, you know, now that they do most all animation digitally with computers instead of, you know, shooting it with the camera, it just makes a whole new world of things available to us, whereas certain things like bypacking camera shots where, you know, one thing is held and the background zooming in, that would be a nightmare to do on an animation camera. Or like even bottom lit effects where, you know, you have glowing effects in animation. That stuff was a pain in the ass to do when you had to shoot everything with animation camera. When they just scan all the animation in, it's colored in the computer, it's, you know, set up in sequence in the computer. All those things are so much easier to do, and also controlling the color of the characters is easier to do. You can make those last minute revisions instead of having to repaint an entire scene of cells and reshoot them on the camera. So, you know, we really have a lot more control over, I guess, the perfectionism that we put into these projects. And I think that's why you've seen kind of the caliber of animation and the look of animation improve so dramatically in more recent days. Like, there are animations out there that kind of verge on looking almost live action, because we've just had equipment upgrades, and it's really benefited us, I feel.
So is it more unhealthy too? It's turning all of you into perfectionists, and you're all like, you know, we could change that. Let's stay here another weekend.
Well, no, because we still have deadlines. we can't go over those deadlines. You know, you can come right up to it, but once it's there, it's like, even if it's not perfect, it's still gotta go. And we have budgets too. We can't spend money, you know, to no end making these things. So yeah, it's not a completely unlimited area, but, you know, we definitely can go a lot farther than we have been able to in the past.
Was this film very far in development when you came in? Like, was the story, were the writers working on it?
The writers were working on it at the time that I came in. I think we were kind of right in the middle of Gail Simone kind of, you know, having to leave the project to do, you know, the comics she was doing, and Mike Jelinek kind of coming in and just having to, you know, finish off the script. And so luckily I had a little bit of input. You know, I was able to give, you know, whatever input I had to give, which wasn't very much because Mike's a very competent writer. But yeah, it was pretty close to a solid script by the time I came in. So
What excited you about when you first were offered the film and when you started looking at what the script was? What excited you either about doing it or what you thought you could bring?
well, for starters, the fact that it's a girl excited me because I've done boy shows and I've done more than I really care to count. So just being able to do something that had a female lead in it was a huge benefit for me. Like it was a huge plus. And yeah, that's it.
Mike Jelenic just said that he retooled the script to make it more like a romantic comedy. What was your experience working with that? Like more of the, more the romantic comedy aspect of a superhero instead of the action parts.
Well, Wonder Woman has more than its fair share of both. Like it's got a ton of action. It might have like the romantic comedy elements in it, but it's still got a huge amount of action. Like more than I really had dealt with until that point. It was probably the most action-packed script that I dealt with at that point. But the romantic comedy aspect of it is what makes that film so fun, and I think it's what makes it so memorable to a lot of the fans that have seen it so far. They saw it at New York when we premiered it, and like that screening was just full of laughter, like almost the entire thing through, just because there would be these really awesome, fun character moments, and I think those moments are even more memorable than like the huge action scenes. Like those are the things that they remember. They go home and they remember, wow, I was laughing through that whole screening. Like that movie was really fun. They don't remember, oh yeah, that guy like totally got stabbed with that sword. Like, they might remember it, but I think the laughter really leaves more of a lasting impression, and that's what Mike brought to that script. And it's really one of the funnest movies I've seen come out of DC, and I'm just really glad to be a part of it because I can say, yeah, that movie was awesome, and I directed it.
Wonder Woman has one of the most disrespected continuities of any major superhero. What was it like swamping through that and getting Steve Trevor and all the classic stuff back?
Well, I'm not 100% familiar with all of her background. Like, I know the basics, but I know also that there's no, real definitive version of Wonder Woman. There's, this version, and there's that version, and there's the different versions that the different fans like. I've heard many people who are much more familiar with all the comic book lore say, yeah, Wonder Woman has always had a really polarized audience. Like, there are the people who love the diplomat, and then there are the people who love the Amazon warrior. So, going into this movie, we kind of knew there was a good chance we were going to piss off 50% of the audience. But really all we wanted to do was just make a good movie, Sometimes fans will get so caught up in their idea of who the character is that they won't really look at a film for what it is, whether it's good or not. It's just like, oh, she didn't do that thing that I love, therefore I hate it. And so we just kind of had to, disregard that and just say, let's just make this as good as we can make it so that not only can, the fans that it appeals to like it, but people who don't know about Wonder Woman or who aren't huge fanatics about her can see this maybe for the first time and be and become fans because it's just a good fun movie. So yeah, we just kind of had to go through her lore and kind of pick out, I guess, the most powerful parts, the parts that we felt were really tied to who she is, and kind of leave out the kind of wackier, maybe not so family-oriented parts. We tried to kind of stray away from the bondage aspect. We still use the truth lasso, but we just don't tie her up and lose her powers with it.